You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am Jon Elmer. This is the Resistance Report for day 650. I am reporting this on July 17th. As always, we're going to start with the maps to get our grounding here. This first map is the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, showing 85% of Gaza in a shoot-to-kill zone, including the entire governorate of Rafah in the south that you can see, and much of Khan Younis as well. You can see that white part along the beach is Mawasi, where daily massacres in the tent camps happen. There's no infrastructure in Mawasi. Tents are lined up row upon row, and so when the fires start in those camps, they spread from tent to tent. And there's no proper roads, there's no proper fire services, and it's an absolute nightmare that Israel keeps attacking. And I'll say it every time we do this show, that the battle spaces in Gaza are not the places that Israel is carrying out the massacres. The battle spaces have been cleared of civilians, and the resistance is fighting in areas cleared of civilians. The massacres that Nora reports on so well at the top of every show, those are happening in areas separate from the battlefield. And Israel this week told us on one day there was 150 airstrikes in Gaza. The next day there was 125. There was 250 over the weekend. In the 2 days, 400 strikes in 72 hours. They're killing 100 people a day. They also expanded their attacks in Syria. More than 260 targets in Syria hit in the last 48 hours or so. Interesting note on Rafah this week, the Israeli state broadcaster, military correspondent, reported through the military censor that the Israeli military recently rescued a group of Palestinian collaborators who were trapped under a collapsed building in Gaza, a mission that they were sent on by the IDF. So that's Yasser Abu Shabab's gang that numbers a few hundred gang members, and they are living in Rafah. Nobody else, no other Palestinians are living in Rafah. And that medevac was carried out by Israel's Unit 669, their tactical unit for special rescue. Those are the medevac helicopters that we watch on the Resistance Report constantly. They're now using them for their collaborators. If we look at the next map, this is the Israeli battle space map that they show. You can see the 143rd Division is destroying in Rafah. That's at the bottom left of your map. That dotted line is the Morag corridor that was cut through. I reported on that as it was happening in April predominantly. The Operation Gideon's Chariots began May 19th. And the Palestinian resistance operation to match that is called the Stones of David operation. But you can see the difference in the maps, the Israeli military maps versus the shoot-to-kill zone. They do not control these areas that are the shoot-to-kill zones. And this map is, again, they keep publishing this map. It's somewhat surprising to me because these are I wouldn't normally show these Israeli maps, but they're accurate about where their military is operating and how much of Gaza is actually not under their control. But you can see devastating areas like in the north on the far right of the map, down in the south. In the northeast, Beit Hanun has been virtually completely wiped out, as is Beit Lahia across from it. And of course, Rafah is the same. This week, the 401st Armored Brigade commander spoke about a shortage of troops because the Israeli map here shows 5 divisions operating in Gaza, but they're not operating with a full complement. When 5 divisions were in Gaza at the beginning of the war, they had a full complement, 4 to 5 brigades in each division. That is not happening at this point. They are short of soldiers, Army Radio pointed out this week after the death of 3 soldiers from the 401st Armored Brigade. Army Radio said, "Where will the Armored Brigade commander get the 4 fighters who were supposed to be replaced by a tank in Jabalia by now? From outer space? Our elected representatives in the Knesset have the solutions. Until then, the tank in Jabalia will stand orphaned." He's talking about the ultra-Orthodox dodging the draft to keep Netanyahu's government together. Army Radio also reported from the head of the Institute for National Security Studies, which is Israel's leading arms-length think tank, Major General Tamir Heyman, who attacked the government yesterday by saying, "I am a tanker, and so I know the biggest nightmare for tankers is to get stuck inside a burning tank without being able to get out. And yesterday, while a tank was burning, a parallel world was operating. How to create a deal to exempt people from service so that they never reach this situation." So 2 leading military figures there speaking out. And again, Army Radio saying the tank in Jabalia will stand orphaned. And that is part of the reason why Israel's a shortage of troops. We know some estimates of their number of casualties, although those have been hidden. But we're talking about numbers in the thousands, in the many thousands. And if you count draft reservists who didn't come back from their draft orders, you're in the tens of thousands. So Israel's strung at their max fighting this war, and the resistance keeps them in that position. The next map is just another way to look at the destruction in Gaza. And you can see this is a debris map that was just released by the United Nations. This is a preliminary debris quantification map by the United Nations Environmental Program that shows 53.5 million tons of debris, 256,000 tons in a single tower that you can see there. The hexagonal grid is about 7.5 football fields, and they show that one tower, 56,000 tons in one area in Gaza City that is the size of the UN headquarters in New York. So mass destruction. Hebrew University just put out some numbers just actually as we were on air. 89% of buildings in Rafah have been destroyed, 84% in northern Gaza, 78% in Gaza City. And since April, when this map was released, this is the debris map as of April. But since then, since April, 2,000 buildings in Rafah per month are being destroyed by the Israeli military. They're not in this stage of Gideon's chariots fighting the resistance, as they say. They are destroying territory, as they have admitted to. This next map just came out yesterday that Israel is a military map showing that they have created a second corridor off the Morag corridor, which is on the left, a new corridor splicing from east to west, Khan Younis, that you can see there. That is, again, from the settlement. That's from 𝐓𝐡𝐞, and this used to be the road into Gush Katif, the settlement that was in Gaza until 2005. So they're cutting a new corridor that's separating Khan Younis, because you've seen on the previous maps that I've shown you on this show that Khan Younis is spread out. And so these corridors are a way to cut the population, to cut the resistance off in these enclaves, an attempt to do that. And the red area that you see is Mawasi that I was talking about. Now we'll take a look at this first operation. This is a near capture operation that happened in Abasan al-Kabira. This is on the eastern side of Khan Younis. Qassam said that they are targeting a Merkava tank, a Namr troop carrier, and 2 excavators with the Yasin 105s. You can see the driver of the excavator there. I've blurred him out to meet YouTube community standards, as we always do on this program. So there will be some parts of this video that are edited as required. But you see these fighters in their own neighborhood. They're able to track this demolition that's happening that I just reported on. 2,000 buildings a month in Rafah being destroyed. And Khan Younis, the goal for the Israelis was the same thing, to do to Khan Younis what they did to Rafah. So you can see the fighters here with his Yasin 105. People are familiar with this at this point. He's loading it up. They are in the destroyed ruins of a building. You can see they have multiple anti-tank warheads along with them. You can see the fighters here blurred as they move through the absolute ruination of Khan Younis. This is now the second battle of Khan Younis after the first battle from December 2023 until April 2024. You can see the excavators at work here. Fighter moves into position with the Yasin. And it appears that they have broken through the Israeli cordon. And we have multiple fighters. We have 3 excavators here destroying houses. That is their sole purpose, is to drop houses that are already mostly destroyed. Yasin strike on this excavator at the same time as the second excavator was fired on here. But you're going to see in a moment here, the soldier's going to flee the excavator. And the footage we're seeing there is a Qassam fighter firing on him. You see him there, the Israeli soldier jumping out of the excavator and running. There he is, blurred, again, to meet standards. So some of this was cut out. He was then shot and killed by the resistance, who go up to him and try to decide if they're going to capture him. Here, they take his weapons off him. He's actually killed with his own service weapon at the end of this, which is edited out of this report. And interestingly, the field report from Qassam that came out before said after the operation that our fighters advanced towards the enemy soldiers and engaged them with light weapons. That's the fighter standing over the soldier, and engaged them with light weapons and tried to capture one of the soldiers, but field conditions did not allow it. So they eliminated him, seized his weapons. Our fighters observed the landing of the helicopter aircraft after his evacuation. And here you see the Glock and 2 service M16s, their service rifles that were captured in that operation. So the field report from Qassam is exactly right. Maybe we can just run it around a second time, because I have a couple more things on this. The Qassam field report before the video is exactly what we just watched on camera. Here before the video is the Israeli report. This is summarized by the Times of Israel, but it was according to the IDF probe, several Qassam gunmen emerged from a tunnel and attacked Israeli forces. During the attack, the operatives attempted to abduct the slain soldier who was operating an excavator. The IDF says that the soldier struggled with them and the terrorist shot and killed them. So you can clearly see that he did not struggle. He fled. And the reason he fled is because he's in an unarmored excavator, Volvo excavator. Also on the BDS list, these Volvo excavators have been wreaking havoc across Gaza. And the story of the Israelis, they framed the story as if he was a hero, and then the Israeli media picked up that IDF probe and spun it in all their own ways, saying that he was brave and courageous, and describing this situation as that their forces, Israeli forces, this is what they say in the probe, Israeli forces guarding the area opened fire on the operatives, hitting several of them and preventing the abduction attempt. So we can clearly see that that is not true. We see on this video a single incoming round that's fired at the Qassam fighters, who then at that moment decide, rather than carry out the capture of the body, that they would just return to their base safely and make that decision. It didn't come from the bravery of the soldier, nor of the security of the Israeli forces in that area. Qassam put out a poster the next day talking about this soldier who you can see jumping out there from the Volvo excavator, whose sole job is to drive around and destroy houses. That's all they do. Haaretz reported last week that they get paid per house that is destroyed, per building that is destroyed. But Qassam said that this soldier right here had bad luck, and soon the next soldier's fate will be better as our new prisoner. And the poster showed it and was in Hebrew for an Israeli audience, and showed the Qassam fighters in this pose here. And this is where he's loading the Israeli weapons into his pants, and that was the moment that poster had on it. This man was a West Bank settler, and his widow at his funeral talked about how he would come home every day and talk about how many buildings he destroyed in Khan Younis in this operation. I'm going to show you this operation with audio because it's interesting here. I'm just going to point out what's going to happen here. You're going to see the fighter who has the GoPro on his head. You're going to see him look at the excavator that's dropping the building and watch the building fall, and then he turns and fires on the second excavator. So let's watch that number 6 now. So right at that moment, dropping the building, you can see it on the upper right there, dropping already destroyed buildings, which is what they're doing. This is the military operation. They're not trying to, they said right off the top of Gideon's Chariots that it was not about killing resistance fighters or defeating the resistance. It was about destroying territory and taking territory. And so that's what they've been doing here in the south, and particularly in Khan Younis. But Khan Younis, as I've been talking about for the last number of weeks, there's been more than 200 operations against Yasin strikes and IEDs against Israeli military vehicles, tanks, D9s, excavators, troop carriers. And you can see that building get dropped there. That's what they're doing, going and pushing them over. To drop them. It's cheaper than dropping bombs on them from their fighter jets, and safer, apparently, they believe, than bringing in mines, which we remember was a period of this war where they were doing it with anti-tank mines. After this one, you can see the towing of a D9 armored bulldozers. These are Caterpillar bulldozers from the United States that are armored by the Israelis, and you can see a train of them there pulling, and that's a tank being pulled. And you can see in the upper right that that's from Friday, the 4th of July, where those tanks and bulldozers were disabled. If we look at the next, it was 3 days after this that the Israeli Ministry of Defense took receipt of these D9 bulldozers from the United States, Peoria, Illinois, Caterpillar bulldozers. The Israeli Ministry of Defense said that a shipment from the United States of dozens of bulldozers for the Israeli army arrived. After months of delay, these were held up by the Biden administration and immediately released by the Trump administration. They were unloaded at Haifa port. Some OSINT open source intelligence trackers noticed that the ship arriving in Haifa port had no AIS tracker on. And this, the defense ministry says, is, you can look at the next one too, is a similar picture. You can see that the Israelis do the armoring of the bulldozers after the fact that they're delivered from the U.S. And this marked, we've been tracking this all war as well. The Ministry of Defense said 870 transport planes and 144 ships have delivered more than 100,000 tons of armaments and military equipment to Israel. And that is almost exclusively from the United States, a little bit from Germany, but this is an American project that's allowing this war to continue, because those the bulldozers that you saw disabled there are replaced by the Americans, and that's what you're seeing here. One more operation from Khan Younis from this week. This is a 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞 operation. You can see they've been using, and I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, you see them using innovative systems because their military manufacturing is not on the same level as the Qassam brigades, who we still see using appropriate weapons. But here we see a wounded fighter moving into position to use a 107 millimeter rocket artillery shell that we see fired all the time in an arcing trajectory. But these fighters here are using it as a direct anti-personnel weapon on a no arc, just a direct delivery from the rubble to the Israeli position. And 𝐓𝐴 𝐄𝐿 also in Khan Younis that same day talked about a near capture operation themselves, that they almost captured soldiers after an IED on a Namr troop carrier. So these are getting closer and closer. It sounds like these capture operations, because there's also one in the north where we're going to move to now. If we look at the map of northern Gaza, as we do, thanks again to Maxwell for making these maps, but you can see the focus of the operations right now have been in Beit Hanun after the ambush that killed 5 soldiers and wounded at least 14 in an ambush a couple weeks back. The war on Beit Hanun, which was supposed to be destroyed, we were told several times and controlled several times before, is still ongoing right now. If we look at the next map, you can see the evacuation of eastern Gaza City and Jabalia City, and this is a massive expulsion order, ethnic cleansing order that Nora reported on at the beginning, and the United Nations said is more than 100,000 people were forced out in one day. And again, they do it with massacres at the same time as the evacuation notices to really underscore the message of the genocide for the Israelis. Taking a look at the next video, number 13, is a 𝐓𝐴 𝐄𝐿 sniper operation. You can see the Israeli flag on the top of the hill in Tufah. This is just outside of the old city of Gaza City. And that flag acts as basically a windsock that helps the snipers get their coordinates and tracking of the distance. So these flags are odd, but they use them in large measure. They use them so they don't kill each other, because the Israelis just shoot to kill anything that moves. And so in these free fire zones, the Israelis have to carry big flags around so they don't shoot each other. And this next operation is 𝐓𝐴 𝐄𝐿 showed up with another Melutka that we see here. It's maybe an Iranian copy of that. It's called a Raed, but it's a Melutka anti-tank wire-guided missile. It's one of the most common wire-guided anti-tank missiles in the world, and there are some of these still in Gaza that came from smuggling routes from many years ago. And we've seen them be used a few times here. They're going to be using it against an Israeli position that you can see. This is along in the 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 area. Another 4 soldiers were wounded today. There's been 14 Yassin and IED attacks just in this past week against tanks and APCs in 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜. So these operations in 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜, which also was said to be under control and destroyed, are still happening apace, it seems. And then this next operation, this is a pretty remarkable shot. This was released by the state broadcaster in Israel through the military censor. This is drone footage of a coordinated operation in Jabalia Balad, in the city of Jabalia. We'll watch it. You can see in the first strike, we'll loop it around again a second time, but you'll see there's the first fighter launches presumably a Yassin strike that hits the first tank. There's 2 tanks in this video. Hits the first tank. You'll see here on the bottom, the tank on the bottom gets hit. And just as it's being hit, if you look in the top left, you can see the fighter emerging and running and hand delivering what appears to be a guerrilla action device that he throws up on top of the tank. A lot of people said it was a 𝐓𝐴, but people who watch this show know that that's not a 𝐓𝐴. The 𝐓𝐴 is way too heavy to be carried the way he's carrying it. And if we look at the next one, there's a tighter edit of it that you can see. You can watch the fighter in the upper left corner emerge from the rubble. And you can see he's running too freely for that to be a 𝐓𝐴. Then he throws it up on a 10-foot high tank that's 15 feet wide. And that's not what we see with 𝐓𝐴 that are more than 50 pounds. But you can see it's just remarkable. And this was released by the state broadcaster, so it went through the military censor. It's not clear why Israel thinks showing these videos it does anything but show the Palestinian resistance to be carrying out these operations that are that take significant courage to hand deliver weapons to a tank. I think that goes without saying. And this battle in Jabalia and this scene from Jabalia is just remarkable footage. And the fighter you see emerges from the rubble, throws the guerrilla action device, and returns to the rubble, returning to his base safely, which the Israelis admitted as well. You can see in the next shot there, this is a still frame of the first tank getting hit, a direct hit by the Yasin. And you can see in the upper left corner there, you see the fighter emerging, and you can see the way he's carrying. That's not a Shawad. He's running too freely for a Shawad. That's probably a guerrilla action device. It's not clear why he throws it on top and not insert it into the turret gap, but they make those decisions based on battlefield conditions, and it's not clear from this drone footage why that choice was made, but it's a remarkable operation, and you can see in the next screen that it's a significant weapon. The guerrilla action device is a Yasin warhead with a magnetic affixer on it, and so they're a devastating weapon as well that we have seen be used all over Gaza. And there was some talk in the Israeli media, their military correspondents and the military talking to their correspondents saying that the Palestinian resistance is getting more bold right now than previous times. But again, people who watch this show, we've seen guerrilla action devices hand delivered, Shawad is hand delivered. We've seen tanks, troop carriers attempted to be mounted by soldiers. So these don't seem to be any more bold than we've seen throughout the war. And there was a video released about a week and a half ago that was from December. This is also in Jabalia. This is in Jabalia camp. This is during number 19 is during the general's plan in December of last year, with the attempt to ethnically cleanse all of northern Gaza, which was promised by the Israeli military from October to January, the ceasefire, and didn't happen. Because of the resistance in the camp. So number 19 is going to start with audio here. So I'll stop. So I left that in there so you could hear the Yasin strike there. You saw the Shawad. Again, you see the Shawad. They have to carry it with two hands. He passes it with two hands to the fighter. But then this is captured drone footage of the Israelis that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 acquired by downing one of their drones. And you can see from the Israeli footage of the medevac into Jabalia camp to extract their soldiers, which is something that we haven't really seen this footage, this type of footage of it. It's a pretty remarkable angle of it. And this operation took place in late December, December 23rd to be exact, according to 𝐓𝐡𝐞. And we're going to see at the end the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 fighters return to their base safely. But again, you're seeing the medevac there. Those are Namr troop carriers that you're seeing there. And the soldiers are being carried out, shown from Israeli drone footage. So two videos of Israeli drone footage that are pretty remarkable. Interesting angle that we don't see all the time of these operations. And then on the other side of the operations of the medevacs, you can see them loading into the back here of the Namr troop carrier. Which is one of the functions of the troop carrier, is that you're able to load the gurneys into the back of the armored vehicle. So remarkable operation in Jabalia. And I just wanted to say that this week, just closing out, that Abu Ubaidah acknowledged and 𝐓𝐡𝐞 acknowledged there's the fighters returning to their base safely at the end of that operation. Abu Ubaidah spoke about Mohammed al-Deif's anniversary of his assassination. So this is really actually the first time they have acknowledged the date of July 13. when we know that he, the commander of the Qassam brigades, was killed. And Abu Ubaidah said, "A year has passed since the departure of the great martyr of the nation, Commander Muhammad al-Dayf, who with his brothers led Al-Aqsa flood, delivering the harshest blow in its history to the Zionist enemy, which led to the permanent collapse of Zionist deterrence, the unification of the nation's energies, and the redirection of its compass towards Palestine, and the return of the Palestinian cause to the forefront once again. For decades, Muhammad al-Dayf remained an inspiration for generations who did not know his image, but were proud of the actions of his victorious brigades, and he will remain, like other leaders, a beacon for free people of the world." So that's just something I wanted to take note of. Abu Ubaidah acknowledging Muhammad al-Dayf's assassination a year ago, July 13th. So that is the Resistance Report for this week, day 650 of this war.